Hello and welcome to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I am your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me, as always, Spencer Newell, Cass Smith, Davis Doan. Guys, how are we today? Spencer, I'll start with you. We're going to start Brady Bunch style up on the top.
It's 80 degrees and sunny in September, and I love that. So I'm doing great.
Okay. Davis?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just slow day here.
Okay, and you're back in Corvallis?
Yep.
All right. Kaz, how we doing?
Doing great.
Good. Sun is shining. Birds are
Yep.
chirping. Beavers lost another game, but we're here to talk about it. We are going to talk some Texas Tech and what went wrong on the road. Going to preview some Oregon, but I have something else fun because I want to talk to you guys instead of getting into the weeds of what went wrong, what went right. I want to get more into, if you're the coach, what are you going to do to, what does Oregon State, what are the players, where do you go from here? So we're going to talk some of that. If you're watching us live, though, make sure that you drop us comments in the chat. We'll try to get to those. We also have listener and viewer damn questions that we'll get to at the end of the show. We have some from Twitter and we have some from Beaver Blitz. So it's going to be a fun show. We're going to make it as fun as we can, even after the heartbreak in Lubbock. So let's just start. Texas Tech. Did you guys all make it through? Did you guys see the game? Okay. Anything stand out as positive? I'm going to start down with Kaz this time.
Saw David Wells and Bryce Caulfield have their best games of their careers.
Yeah.
In receptions and yards. So I guess that was positive.
That David Wells catch, by the way, was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Davis, how about you?
Oh, we got a sack.
We got two.
That's positive. Yeah. So that's good. At least we can get to the quarterback.
Okay. And I will say we also saw the Beavers' first extra point of the season. Spencer, you got anything positive?
Yeah, I think getting to see Carson Boschma get his first touchdown was awesome. And I think they made 2 extra points, right?
They did 2 sacks and 2 extra points.
So that's pretty good. I agree with. I think David Wells probably had the catch of the year so far. I mean, for us definitely, but that was.
I had
impressive.
to go back and watch that because it was big. Punting, long snapping, still an issue. Now I will give credit that Oregon State doesn't like where they're at with the punting or the long snapping, so they got creative, and we saw Malik Murphy do a pooch punt one time. We had the short snaps with Van Wells doing it, snapping the ball. So they're trying, guys, and I think this is a good. I put it in the questions, but I want to bring up a tweet that I saw from Tony Pulicella, longtime Beaver fan. I remember him when I was a fundraiser, one of my favorites. Said, I'm not going to stuff the negative comments on Beaver football. Nobody on the team, players, coaches, or admin are trying to fail. It is what it is, and I'll never stop loving the Beavs in all things. Never. Good luck. Good luck this week, men. Yeah, got to sometimes step away and say, like, these guys aren't trying to lose. So I think this is kind of the time where you step back and there needs to be some soul searching. The coaches need to come together, kind of figure out what's, it's funny. You hear coach speak all the time say that guys aren't executing. But I think by game 3, when you're having the same mistakes, that's when the coaches need to maybe step back and say, okay, but however we're teaching it isn't working. Spencer, you're a teacher, a coach. What do you do when what you're saying isn't getting through to your clients?
I would just ask them why it's not getting through, and maybe flush out anything that the players are thinking about and why they're just not soaking in the information, right? Maybe it's a mental thing or whatever it is. But I mean, for me, it all comes down to communication between coach and player, like honest communication.
Yeah. What areas, Davis, do you think the coaches need to address?
I mean, doesn't seem like the team's too motivated. Like they obviously seems like you would want, like the players would want to win, and I think they do. But some of the time it just seems like, I mean, motivation and like we're still making the same mistakes. So It's not like you're getting unlucky with different things happening. We're just same mistakes happening every week. So it needs to fix, and that needs to be fixed.
Did you guys, I noticed, I felt that there was a lack of energy from the players. Did you guys do that, Kaz?
Yeah, I agree. Both sides of the ball, I think.
Yeah. I mean, none more, probably more obvious than that those 2 third and longs that just complete failure on the defensive side. But offensively too. And I think what I worry about is losing that locker room. And how do you prevent that? There was one point that Malik Murphy went for a sneak to get the first down, and nobody even helped give him a hand to lift him up, or finger pointing on a false snap. Spencer, how do you, if you're a coach, how do you address that?
I think I'll go into it more later in the show, but it seems like the coaches, well, we're not in the locker room, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But the coaches have done what they can do and are continuing to do that. But now it almost seems like the captains and the players have to step up and really take ownership of it. And I was thinking this morning, like, this would be a perfect time to have an all players meeting where Hankerson, Trent, Malik, Skylar get in the room and have it all out and just air out any grievances, any predicaments, anything that is on their mind that's preventing them to play hard and with effort. It seems like, and I've got an example that I took a look at back from 1977 when Notre Dame was in the same position. I can talk about that later, but yeah, I think it's time for a players meeting.
Okay. So we kind of areas coaches can address. Where can the team improve immediately? So again, you're a coach, and where do you, it seems like so many things are going wrong. What 2 areas, let's say, are you focusing on that they can improve immediately? Kaz, we'll start with you.
I would hope long snapping by now. I'd say more of a balanced offense. It seemed like we relied very heavy on the passing game last game. Our run offense was awful. We had 8 yards as a team.
8. Yeah.
Probably establishing a more balanced offense, I think we can do, because our identity as a team the past 3 years was run. And now it seems very lopsided.
Okay, but my question then is, I'm not going to disagree with you, but the Oregon State did try to run. They can't run. The offensive line is struggling to open holes. So it's weird too, because I don't think you were actually on the pod a couple weeks ago when I talked about it, but we haven't really seen a lot of bubble screens, little slants, short game passes. I do think that the passing game is going to be the strength of this team, but how would you like to see the Oregon State running game get established when they are struggling to block up front?
That comes down to practice probably. Maybe I don't even know.
And what's hard too,
runs, pitches.
Yeah, and what's hard too, just playing devil's advocate, is the 2 teams that they've really struggled to run against were Cal and Texas Tech, who, aside from Oregon, are probably the 2 other best front sevens that Oregon State will face, defensive lines. So it's a tough one. Hey, Davis, let's go to you. Give me something that you want to see improvement on immediately that you would work on.
Offensive line penalties. It just kills all momentum that you have, if you have any. And just, it's continually shooting ourselves in the foot and just losing yardage. And when our offense plays a solid game and we lose, like to Fresno State, we shouldn't have lost that. It was based on penalties and errors in the special teams.
Digital Dam says, I saw Hank was averaging under half a yard a carry. Yeah, 8 total yards for the game. But now there's another question that gets brought up in the lodge then is, do you want to see more Salahadin Allah? Kaz, I'll go back to you on that one just because you were talking about the run game.
I think him as well as Cordy Glass, who we saw a little bit of.
Yeah.
But yeah, just mixing up the running back, see if they can't find anything, and at least try to get a little more going.
Yeah, and on the penalties, Davis, I don't even want to know how many bear crawls that O-line is doing right now. Honestly, Cav is probably working them hard. Okay, Spencer, what do you got for me? You're a coach going into Oregon. What do you see from this team that you think can be improved upon immediately?
Effort. Yeah. That's it. I mean, it's, it was interesting after the rain delay. The commentators were saying, look, it's who comes out the most mentally strong after that break that will win this game. And you saw Texas Tech just immediately go on fire, and then we just came out dead. There was no energy. It really comes down and I said in the staff predictions for this week, all I want to see this week is just effort and passion and commitment to the program. That's it. The score is going to be what it is. Yeah. So
I agree. And I addressed that today, actually, in my That's What She Said article.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of things that maybe fall out of your control. There's mistakes that can be made. And we get it. We all make mistakes, but the one thing we can control is the effort and the passion we put into it. So that to me was the most disheartening, I guess, was just seeing, but Coach Bray addressed it. He talked about it today in the post or the press conference. He talked about it in the post game. I think that was disheartening to him too. He wants to see everybody giving it their all the time, not jogging to the ball. They need to run to the ball. But I do worry, you cannot lose the locker room, because when you do that, when things go sideways, I know for Davis and Kaz, you won't remember this. Spencer might, but I don't know what year it was. Jacquizz Rogers was on the team. Things had got a little sideways, and I'll never, ever forget Washington State's in town, and they shoved him out. It was a late hit on Quiz, and not one person came to Quiz's rescue. They all just stood there. Huge indication of where that team was. Yeah, I think that's a huge part. And that goes now, it's kind of leading into the next point. We could really skipped a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't think we needed to, we can talk about, offense, defense, special teams, but it's kind of rehashing the same stuff we've talked about week in and week out. But that lack of energy and effort, and how do you prevent losing the locker room? So Spencer, I want to talk to you about that, because I know you talked about the team meeting, or player only meeting. How do you see that going?
Well, like I mentioned before, I think the captains get together and just set the stage. Because certainly, you brought up the example of, the O-line guys not helping Malik out. I saw a couple things, after a play where the O-line were literally
pointing
laughing
fingers
on the field, pointing fingers and laughing on the field after so that was disheartening. Yeah. So that's, the coaches can only say and do so much. The players got to respond. And look, we're not in college football like it used to be. These guys are getting paid. And if that hammers this home even more. If they want to go to the pros and if they want a shot at that, they got to figure this stuff out now, and they've got to act like professionals. I mean, $1.5 million is a lot of money. I'm not saying Malik has to step up necessarily, but OSU made an investment in these guys, and they've got to come out with some professionalism.
Yeah, I hear you. And that I feel that fans too. So you bring up a point about the whole NIL, and these guys this is no longer 5 years ago where guys were playing for a college because they got their education and they were proud to be, Oregon State Beavers and wear that name on the jersey. With the transfer portal and guys hopping and getting bags and bags. I mean, some of these players are making more money than coaches. And, I do think the level of expectation, changes, that it's no longer, hey, we're cheering for these guys regardless. So how do you combat the apathy that can start setting in with a fan base? I mean, this whole NIL thing, we can talk that, like I've said a few times, that can be a whole show on its own. But what happens? I just see this going in a direction where you're going to have 10 programs, that are constantly in the hunt. And everybody else, you're going to start getting to a point where where the NIL boosters are like, wait, I've given $1 million every single year and we're not getting any better. So I'm out. I'm out. This is crazy. So you're going to start seeing, I think, more of a, kind of that middle ground. But how do you combat the apathy that's starting to set in, even with Beaver Nation? Davis, do you have any ideas?
No, not really sure. I mean, because fans want to see winning football, and if it's not happening, it's just not. There's not going to be a lot of fans that want to come out and support, and especially if the players don't look like they want to even be there.
Yeah. Okay, so you're a student. What's the mood? I know you just moved back into campus, so maybe you haven't seen a bunch of people yet. But I mean, do you think this is going to be a full student section come Friday night in 2 weeks when Houston comes to town, or is there not a big?
I mean, I think we maybe the start of the game, but I think if we don't play a good first quarter, even I think
really,
yeah.
I mean, it's a Friday night game in Corvallis, the next Beaver home game. Students will be back on campus. If the students can't even walk down 26th Street, that's a big, that should be a big eye opener. Kaz, what would you like to see done just as far as keeping, combating apathy within fan base and players? You guys are both, played sports. What keeps you motivated?
I mean, honestly, wins, of course. But if you're not winning, just try to keep having fun.
Yeah.
Just try to keep the vibes up. However you do that, I mean, that's up to Trent Bray and the coaches to figure out. But they got to try some new things, do some team bonding or something, or have a day where they go do something. You got to just have them gel and connect and keep having fun.
And then, you mentioned that, but it also then plays a part in recruiting. So that's another whole subtopic that we're not addressing. And, Oregon State has a good start, a good foundation to the recruiting class. But what I start watching is when I reach out to these guys every, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, the commits to see how they've done or, how their game went. And when you start hearing from a few less of them, or you start seeing them post their film on Twitter, it makes you start to wonder, like, are they checking out? Are they, hearing from, they're hearing from other programs. If they're solid players, other programs are getting in their head. So it's another whole side of this. So it's kind of like this huge snowball effect, right? So you start losing, and then you start watching fans not come to games, and then the students don't come to games. So as I said, and she said, that's what she said today, it's like this huge ship though, and it has to somehow get momentum turned around the other way. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think we've all hit on it. It starts with the effort that you see from the players. How then, this is going to be probably a shorter pod just because we go into Oregon week this week. This is Civil War week. Number 10 Oregon, and Coach Bray talked about it today in his presser. Civil War doesn't maybe have the same meaning that it did to the players 5-10 years ago when it was, the battle for the state. But he said the players want to play the best opponents, so that it has that motivation factor. Do you expect this game to be competitive at all, Spencer?
No, I don't. And this is the A's versus the Yankees. This is just, they're on another playing field, and fortunately we have to accept that. And until, and I would urge fans just to hold on till next year, till we get a good, like the Pac-12's back and the TV deals in place, and we start generating more revenue. These 2 years were about just holding on till that happens. I think we were talking about the Civil War later, or if the game should continue later, but I just want to see these guys play with effort and passion and commitment. That's all.
Cass, do you think this is a competitive game?
No, I think it could be an Oklahoma State Oregon game.
Davis, any hope?
No.
No. Okay. So is there what? Okay. So Spencer wants to see effort. Is there any matchup on this field that you think Oregon State has a shot? Passing game, maybe? You think
I would say
Malik
passing
has a-
game.
Yeah. I mean,
I would say
think-
passing game.
I think Malik could put up some numbers.
Yeah, I think that's the only area.
But I don't know if I would say Oregon State has the advantage.
Right.
Although my son did tell me today that Malik is one of the top rated passers in the country right now. So there's that. But I think that is one area that Oregon State, if they play their best, they could score points. Big Mo in the comments says Beavs' first 5 opponents are 15-1. No excuses, but a rough schedule. Absolutely. It was a brutal schedule. And we knew that going in. And I think that's been the hardest to swallow, though, is the fact that, most fans, I think all of us were thinking, okay, if the Beavs could somehow be 2-2 after this first 4 games, then you actually are setting yourself up for some success down the stretch. But some of the, Houston doesn't look like a bad team. And there's some other programs in there. I mean, I watched some of that Houston game Friday night with Colorado. They beat Colorado. So, you say what you will about Colorado, but it's still a Power 4 decent team. So no, it's tough sledding, but yes, you're right. It has been tough. Cal, I think, is better than a lot of people want to give him credit for. But again, then that's what hurts even more is the fact that Oregon State was actually in that game and it was some self-inflicted wounds, maybe not as much as Fresno State, which they had that game, and that makes that one even tougher to swallow. But so we have another comment here. Hang on. Malik putting up numbers. Who does it benefit besides Malik? Yeah, that is true. And those big numbers don't do anything unless you're hitting guys in the end zone. So a lot there, a lot to unpack. Again, we are a quarter of the way through the season, though. 3 games is a quarter of the way through the season. So I think there's a lot kind of to unpack. Who was it, Spencer, that talked about the new Pac-12 coming? That is something I do think Beaver fans should kind of hold on to, because I think starting next year, that could actually have some really fun and competitive games with Boise State. Rip City says, unfortunately, I think Civil War point differential will be more than last year, potentially. So that brings up a point. And do you want to see the Civil War continue? I'm going to start with Davis.
I think it should be on pause, which I think it just got put on pause. Yeah.
At least for a year, I think, for 26.
Yeah. I mean, I do totally, I grew up watching the Civil War, so it does, I do enjoy watching it most of the time, but as it's gone more into NIL, it's just not even a watchable game.
Well, NIL, and I'd say also the conference realignment.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kaz?
I know I said I did last week, but I'm changing my opinion to no. I think it's good that we're putting a pause on it. And I just think, we just need a little time, get a good foundation with the new Pac-12, and hopefully, start it up again once it's a more level playing field, and it'll be like a good game for both teams.
Yeah. Spencer, your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what Cass and Davis said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, the competitive balance is not even. And so, pause it for a little bit until we kind of recoup.
Yeah, and it's hard because, Civil War has always, for the past 20 years, it's meant something. But the two schools are on such completely different trajectories, both in conference and in NIL. It doesn't make sense. I know Oregon probably wants it because they see it as an easy win and a no money out of pocket to travel, but that's not Oregon State's fault that they decided to leave for the Big Ten. So I don't I'm not into the money bag games, the body bag games, and it's not a, don't want to be the beating stick for Oregon to come out. So that's my thoughts on that. So I think we're just going to jump into some damn questions. Do you guys have anything else you want from Texas Tech or that you want to see from Oregon this week? Because I didn't really want to just hash on the same stuff we've been hashing out, but Spencer, you got notes there?
No, I think we've covered most of it.
I hope we have more to talk about. It might not be next week. I might bring on a guest next week. So talk to Spencer about that. But I think it would be kind of fun to talk about that. So we're not talking about dismal numbers. Rip City, let's see. The new Pac-12 excitement has been dampened by our performance so far this year. I think there was a lot of optimism about the Beavs doing well this season and carrying momentum into next year. Absolutely. I think, they're, and like you said, in competing for a playoff spot. There was a lot of talk this fall from the people around Pro Throw that practice the players, Jack, that they could sneak into the playoff situation, and we're not seeing that. And Washington State's not faring much better. So yeah, the excitement about the new Pac-12, Washington State's not having an easy go as well. So, but at the end of the day, that's what happens. I mean, I saw someone in the lodge say that it's Oregon State and Washington State basically got the death sentence for no fault of their own. So both programs are kind of in a build mode. I do think though bringing the schools and they're bringing in, especially I think Boise State has some, that can be some fun, competitive rivalries kind of starting up there. Fresno will be a good rivalry going forward. San Diego State. So there's some good ones that I think can help kind of build that bridge to back to relevancy. But it starts now, and it starts with Oregon State fixing some of the things that are plaguing them right now. Gonna get to some damn questions. And first one comes from James Lee on Twitter. It said, before Trent Bray was appointed head coach of Oregon State football, he said he had no desire to be a head coach. What was said to him to change his mind to accept the head coaching job at Oregon State? That's kind of timely if you saw the press conference today. And I'll speak to this because I was actually at media interview when somebody asked Trent about being a head coach when he was a finalist. I don't know if it was Montana State. It was one of those jobs. And he had said, no, I don't really have an interest in being a head coach. I think what came down to for him, from what I've heard kind of through the grapevine, is he loves Oregon State and he loves the players. So when Jonathan Smith kind of did the midnight leave after Civil War a couple years ago, I think Trent felt in his heart that he couldn't leave Oregon State and the players and just leave them, So that's where it came from. And I think he's grown to accept it. He, like I said, he loves the program. He loves the players. He loves Oregon State. And so that is why he took the job. And, I don't know if he would take a head coaching job elsewhere, but I think Oregon State it means more. It means something different. Nick Volker, Bray passed on the question in the press conference. Do you like being a head coach? Yeah. I saw that, but Bill Orem asked him the same basic question, the very first question of his string of 4 or 5 questions. So, and Trent did answer that question. So he basically had answered the question the first time around, kind of on why he was a head coach. It was very similar. Trent could have answered it a little different. Did you guys see that at all? The press conference?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in that Orem asked the question. The first question was, and he gave a pretty detailed explanation. And then that last question, do you like being a head coach? I think by that point, after 4 questions of pretty very pointed questions, I think Trent was done. Spencer, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, good for Trent. I mean, he had already answered that question.
And it was a lot. Like I said, it was in succession. Bill Orem asking the tough questions, but I didn't take that as him passing Nick on passing on the question necessarily. It was just the fact that I think he had already answered that. Now he could have said, Bill already answered that question, the first one you gave at me. But what I worry about, though, is someone now in today's day and age of grabbing that one little clip and running with it. So that's, and we see that. We see it every single day. So, somebody goes, it doesn't mean that the questions weren't valid. This is Ben Smith. Doesn't mean weren't valid, but it was a lot. Yeah, I agree. They were some tough questions that fans have been asking, but it was a lot in succession. So let's see. Tyler Trout on Twitter. Thanks for giving us a damn question on Twitter. Why did OSU spend so much of their limited NIL money on backup tight ends who aren't getting targets? There's plenty of coaching problems to point out, but that seems like awful game planning, money management, and probably bad talent ID as well. Got some thoughts on that, Davis? So I think he's referring to Jackson Bowers and Riley Williams, who came in from the portal, tight end. We've seen Riley Williams playing.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to bring in talent at positions anyway. So if those are the two that are available that are, interested in your school, if they do cost a lot of money to go get, you need that position. You need players at every position. So it just happened. It just happens to be tight end that we had interest in. They had interest in us.
Yeah. Spencer, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess my question is, like, if we brought in these great tight ends, but do we have the supporting cast around the tight ends and the QB to help bring out their potential? And I'm not sure we do.
And I think that's a good point. And we've talked about the offensive line. And you guys know this has been my sticking point since spring camp is offensive and defensive line. That's been my big concern. You could have a team full of all-world wide receivers and tight ends and quarterback, but if you don't have the blocking up front to give them time or the fast, or wide receivers that just don't have the speed to create separation, that it can make everybody look bad. So that's the problem. We used to talk about this back in the day with Coach Riley and his pro style offense. So I'm going to go in the way back machine here, probably before Kaz and Davis were like watching Beaver games. But, there was a talk that, Coach Riley this is in the time period when Chip Kelly and his fast-paced offense was really coming in vogue. And Riley was really stuck on the whole pro style. But when you stop to look at it, when the pro style worked, it was damn near indefensible. Like, it worked. But you needed so many pieces to be above average or really, really good. You needed an exceptional offensive line, an exceptional quarterback, exceptional wide receivers, really good, to above average running back. You needed all those pieces to be there. Whereas a Chip Kelly offense, you needed some fast guys that could get open in space and a quarterback that could actually, read the defense and make a quick call. It took out a lot of the talent. And I say talent, not that those teams didn't have talent, but it took out a lot of the pieces that were needed. And I worry sometimes that Oregon State needs too many pieces right now to be really, really good. And maybe they're just missing one or two cogs. Offensive line, for example, because as Kaz pointed out, we've become kind of one-dimensional. We can't run the ball. So what happens when you become one-dimensional? Then it's easy to key in on Trent Walker and the receivers if you know that Oregon State can't run the ball. So like we saw actually a couple of years ago when Oregon State couldn't pass the ball. Then they knew they just had to stack the box and stop the run. And then you had your hands tied behind your back. So to Tyler's point about the backup tight ends, let's not, throw the baby out with the bathwater here, because I think it's a bigger picture than just that one piece. 87 J rounds. After 3 games, I have not seen any progress but regression in coaching. How do they not have a long snapper prepared? I don't understand the love of the sweep with Hank. I admit that I have not been able to watch all the games, but I don't see it. I know that Walker is clearly the most reliable, but Tech figured that out. Help me understand what the plan is for offense. This might take an entire hour right here, guys. So I'm going to take the easy one, the whole long snapper question, because Trent Bray actually addressed that today. So they weren't planning on, Dylan Black, their long snapper, hurting himself in Cal. Okay. But then you have a backup long snapper in Jackson Robertson who snapped 9 games last year. For whatever reason, overnight, he can't snap the ball. So now you're left with your third string long snapper who you've just actually brought up. He was a long snapper in high school. As Trent said, there is not a team in the country that wouldn't be struggling if they had to bring up a third string long snapper. So keep that in mind. So as far as the coaching regressing because of the long snapper, like I said, this might go to Spencer where the long snapper needs a sports psychologist to flush whatever is making him struggle with long snapping.
Yeah, I feel like Cass might have a point too. He and I talked about the long snapper thing last week, and you got to believe they're doing everything they can to coach these guys up. I mean, they're not putting guys out there just to fail. Like they're trusting their players.
Yeah. Kaz, do you have anything to add?
No.
Jackson Robertson did not go out there 2 weeks ago with the intent, I'm gonna, let's have fun and snap the ball over the heads. Let's just, it's not the case. And I think long snapping is one of those. I can't even pretend to know long snapping because I think it's a lot more mental than a lot of other positions. So, okay, let's talk offense though, because this is something we can all talk about. What is the offense? We've talked about this a couple weeks ago, the identity of the offense and the love of the sweep with Hank. What are we doing? What are we trying to do in offense? Spencer, you got any ideas?
We're trying to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we all fell in love with this when Quiz and James were here. Just wanting to see just how speedy those guys and the tricks that they would do, and maybe that's what they're trying to emulate. I'm not a coach, but I mean, at this point, let's open up the playbook and try things that may be a little exotic right now.
Yeah, Davis, you got any?
Yeah, I think the point is to you need to get Hankerson the ball. He's probably your best, if not, he's one of our best 3 offensive players. He needs to have the ball in his hands, and he can't do that if he can't run up the middle, like behind our offensive line. We need to get him the ball on the outside and give him some room, but it's hard. He has no space.
Zero. They just closed in on him. Cass, do you have anything to add?
Kind of agree with Spencer. I think you just got to open up the playbook and get really creative. Maybe some more like bubbles with Hankerson or double jet sweeps, whatever. Get creative. I would say though,
I'm right there with you. He has some slants and some bubble screens, but Hankerson hasn't been shown to be the best pass catcher out of the backfield.
That is true.
That's a concern. But again, I'm not trying to, be snarky here, but it's not like Ryan Gunderson is sitting there saying, how can we go out and be ineffective? Like another guy who loves Oregon State with all his heart is not sitting there with the playbook going, let's see, what can I draw up that they can just swallow and not work? I will say in talks over the past couple of years with coaches at other teams around the old Pac-12, there was at the time not one, he talked to defensive coaches and they said, there's not one person really on that offense that scares me. Mm-hmm. You don't have speed at receiver. You have some guys that can run, but there's not enough guys that really just scare. It's like a defensive backfield. Like, okay, this guy is going to beat me if I don't. So I think that continues to be an issue. Trent Walker, he had a couple of drops this week, but typically is real reliable with his hands, but he's not going to take the top end off of the defense. I think Taz could be, David Wells could be, but they hadn't shown any consistency enough to make anybody worry about you. So what does a defense do? Well, they take Trent Walker out of the equation and you stuff the run. And then we see what that gets us. So I don't think it's an easy answer. I think you can easily say you need to recruit some, different athletes or some additional athletes. But that's not a quick fix. That won't happen like today. William, 1974. What is being done to correct the poor efforts on field and the errors in technique and attitude? Well, we're not in the locker room, but we've kind of talked about what we would like to see. I mean, you could tell by Coach Bray both post game and today that is a big issue with him. Davis, what do you think? What do you think's happening? You think there's a coach meeting? Do you think they're addressing it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Trent Bray is chewing them out. I'm sure he's giving them a lot of energy and trying to fire them up. I mean, yeah, we haven't seen any really motivation or just any fiery like defense or offense from this team. And we saw it in fall and spring. They looked like the team's flying around and matching his energy, but on the field, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, Davis and Spencer, you were at one practice. Davis, you were at a week of practice, especially defensively. What we saw fall camp and what we're seeing now, night and day different. Zero swagger, zero. I mean, how many times do we see them? Like, the entire all 11 rush to the ball carrier? Like
anytime the ball.
Anytime, yeah. I mean, every time. Like. And it was a point of emphasis. And now all of a sudden Coach Bray would yell at them if they didn't all run. And we were at a practice. I don't know if you were there, that Coach Bray actually stopped it when the offense wasn't running.
Yeah.
He stopped and called them in and had some choice words for that. So, again, I don't want to be a broken record, but it's not like everybody's sitting around like they understand things aren't working and they're trying, I think, behind the scenes. Now we're not privy to what is going on there, but there's a lot that needs fixed. So I think you have to start with some, like we talked about. I went at your guys' opinion on what you guys would fix now immediately. So that's kind of why we went there. One more Idaho Beef fan. I know the schedule gets easier after this Saturday, but we've got be in every way possible against Texas Tech. As hard as it is for fans, the players in the locker room that spend hours preparing and working are feeling worse without question. Do you have any sense as to what the locker room is like right now? How's the morale of the team? Coach Bray today said it's good and that they've been very responsive. I haven't heard different. Now, Kaz and Davis, players, you see them around. Probably haven't seen any quite yet, but have you guys have any pulse or indication?
No.
Usually see them in class and things. So, Spencer, I don't think I'm going off what I've heard, and I haven't heard anything the past 2 days. So
I was chatting with Skylar's mom, and she was adamant that they're fighting. They're fighting as hard as they can. They're fighting for each other. And so again, we're not there. So in the locker room, so we don't know. So,
but that's the best case scenario. That's what you need. You need those seniors and the captains to be leading the charge of this is not how we do things, because not only is that going to help turn that ship around now, but then that instills that leadership for the younger guys on how things are run going forward. I will say, Skylar's little brother is a commit, and I did ask a couple of the commits, their thoughts on what Oregon State's going through, and every week, Sinai is like, doesn't matter, they're struggling, but we've all struggled, and I'm a beef. I bleed orange and black, and that's just the way it is. And what's funny too is, I think fans get so impassioned about, this is horrible, the sky is falling, but to a player, and I think I've mentioned this before, the players have all been through it. They've all played on teams. You guys have, Davis, Kaz, you guys have played on teams that, Spencer, you guys have been with groups that fail, or, you don't live up to what you would hope to do. So to a player, these recruits are kind of like, well, okay, they're looking to see how the fans are reacting and how the coaches react. That's more important to them than necessarily, wins and losses on the field. So I think that's important to remember too, although that doesn't mean other programs aren't going to be coming in and doing their best to try to sway some of these guys. Oregon this week. Anybody have any? I don't even think it's worth. We talked about what we Nobody. So is nobody picking staff picks? Beaver win. You telling me that? Don't think so. Don't think so. Well, we're going to cut it short then because there is not a lot to hash on. I think we actually had some good discussion though. I loved hearing what you guys thought kind of from a coaching standpoint, what you would do. And I thought the questions were good and kind of talking about some of that going forward. But next week, we'll do it again. Have some more to talk about. Kaz, anything to add before we sign off?
We did one in one category, and that was penalties against Texas Tech. So.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So we got
There we
three
go.
positives. We've got
Yep.
penalties. We had first 2 sacks and our first 2 point afters.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like I said, the whole short punt, the whole short snap, it didn't work out the first time or two. But I will say I appreciate the effort in trying something different. So there, we're leaving on some positive notes. Davis, you got anything?
Not right now.
Davis is speechless. He has moved into his room in Corvallis. So that means, are you in a quiet floor or quiet room, or are we going to get guys busting in like Jake used to?
Quieter room.
Quieter room.
Yeah.
Okay. Jake used to put a sign on his door that said like quiet.
Yeah. I
and
locked the
podcast.
door.
Okay. You're back in Corvallis. We have eyes and ears on the ground in Corvallis. Spencer, you got anything to add?
Listen, I still believe at the end of this year we're going to look back at these 4 weeks and shake our head, because I do believe starting Monday, things, you know what? Starting Saturday with the efforts there, things will turn around and the schedule plays in our favor. We can still knock out some wins. So I'm excited for the rest of the season, to be honest.
Okay, so the one thing I think that I'm going to write down consensus for next week that we're going to talk about, the one thing we all want to see is just more effort from the team. Is that right? Okay, win, lose, draw. We want to see effort. We want to see guys flying around. And that's what we're going to talk about. Hopefully next week we see that. Until then, I'm Angie, Spencer, Kaz, and Davis. Check us out on beaverblitz.com, and we'll be back next week for another episode of the Damn Podcast.
It's just us.
Hang on.